In this nugget, we'll take a look at some concepts and ideas surrounding bring your own device. Let's begin. We should probably start off by identifying what the heck is BYOD. BYOD is a policy, bring your own device, where a company allows the employees to bring their own personal devices and have connectivity or get connectivity to the production corporate network. Now, one of the tricks is, how do we know if it's Bob's device that he's bringing in? Maybe it's IT Bob, one of our users, or it's some attacker who's trying to connect to our network. And there are many different options that we could use to address the situation. For example, we could have two SSIDs, two wireless networks, one for guests and one for employees with validated devices. And the SSID for guests would have very limited access, and the SSID, the wireless network, for these employees with validated devices would have the full access that they needed. And for more information on setting up SSIDs and working with access points and wireless LAN controllers, I would refer you to our CCNA wireless course and those nuggets regarding those wireless specific details. But the same concept could happen on our wired networks as well. We could have one authorization profile for devices that we don't recognize, and a different authorization profile with additional access for users that have authenticated along with devices that we recognize. And one option that we could use to bring Bob's device in and make it a recognized device is using a digital certificate. We could enroll and implement a digital certificate, an identity certificate, on each device that an employee brings in, and then with a digital certificate installed on that device, it could then be recognized as a trusted device. So whether we're wired or using wireless, the concept would be we'd redirect all unknown devices to web authentication. And that way we can find out who the user is behind that computer. And for the details on setting up that redirection for web-based authentication, I would refer you to the nugget with that same exact title called Web-Based User Authentication. And then once we've authenticated the user and we know who the user is, we could redirect the user for provisioning. So if this is a wireless network, perhaps our guest wireless network has the components ready for the provisioning. And on a wired network, we'd simply use an authorization profile for the port that would redirect that computer for provisioning. And for the details regarding configuring redirection for the benefit of provisioning, I'd refer you to the nugget titled Provisioning NAC Agents from ICE, because the redirection for that provisioning is the same concept. And then what the ICE server could do, it could go ahead and enroll with the certificate authority requesting an identity certificate on behalf of the PC or whatever that computing device is. So the CA issues a digital certificate, and the ICE server can go ahead and push down to this client the digital certificate for the client, as well as a wizard that's going to assist the user in deploying that digital certificate on that device. There's also an additional wizard for the 802.1x configuration on this device. So this is Bob's computer that he brought into the company. Going through this process, it would now have an identity certificate, and the 802.1x supplicant would be configured to use that digital certificate as part of the 802.1x authentication. And then once the 802.1x is configured, the supplicant is going to send an EAP message which is going to trigger the 802.1x authentication. And this time, because the computer has the digital certificate, we could have an authorization profile that's looking for a valid user plus an identity certificate on the computer that the user is coming in on. And this authorization profile that's invoked based on these conditions being true would then give Bob and his computer the full access he needs. And there are several variants on this that we could use, including using the native supplicant that comes with an operating system like Windows. Or during this part right here, we could have the ICE server push down the supplicant that we want installed and used on this PC that Bob brought in. In this nugget, we've taken a look at some of the options that might be used to onboard a device that is brought in by the user, including redirecting the user for initial authentication on an unknown device, redirecting them to provisioning services, including installing an identity certificate on that device, as well as configuring or downloading and configuring an 802.1x client, and then using the 802.1x supplicant to authenticate, and as part of that authentication, use the newly installed identity certificate. And as a result, we can use an authorization profile giving additional access for that user and computer that are coming into the network. I have had a great time in this nugget. I'm glad you joined me for it. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.